This UAP video links Dr. David Jacobs, the abduction specialist, with the Allies of Humanity writings. I hope you like the video.
It just is not there. It's the one great remaining question. Why? We know what they're doing and we know the consequences of what they're doing, but we don't know why.
This is an introduction to this material, the Allies of Humanity, which I'm going to go over in a Cliff Notes style here. You just saw a clip from David Jacobs, and he agrees with all this in principle. I'm just going to start by saying. And he believes the goal of the EBs that are visiting and doing abductions is planetary acquisition, which actually is what this material talks about. So let me just go through a brief try to bring this into more meaningful terms to us Earthlings here. Is this material channeled? Sources hint that there are angels involved, and there are many mentions of religion in this material, of different types of spirituality. I agree that religion or spirituality in general is part of the UAP phenomenon. I really have a model that this is a key aspect of it. Anyway, viewers, you can read this online for free or read the books. By the way, Jacques Vallée also believes there's a spiritual component and so forth. I'm not alone in that. 2025 is coming up fast. This year is mentioned in many abduction events by EBs, and I have come across it this year as a critical time for many different UAP research projects I've been involved with. This material, the Allies of Humanity, has a sense of urgency to it that seems to match that time frame. So this was released initially 5 years ago, the first book anyway, and that's about 5 years before this 2025 date. It's coming up a year and a half away. So I think this is another confirmation that in my mind, it's curious. I think this is a critical date. I think we're going to have maybe disclosure in 2025. I don't know. But again, that specific year has been mentioned many times. I've come across it. Anyway, I will summarize this video as follows. These briefings are like parables, okay? And these books are composed of these briefings, and each one is, 5 or 10 pages long or whatever, and each one covers a different topic, and like a parable, so it's in a way of, understanding these obtuse concepts and constructions. So I'm going to do a parable about street gangs in Los Angeles based on the Allies of Humanity. So planet Earth is going to get played by non-spiritual EBs, okay? These, let me just move forward here. So we're going to say that these EBs, this collective, and it's a collective of several smaller groups into one larger group of malevolent EBs who have goals of planetary acquisition of planet Earth, okay? So they're one gang. We Earthlings are another gang, and Earth is our hood. So humans have a hood, and it's pretty sweet. Everybody wants our women. These abductions, there's all this breeding and so forth going on, if you believe that, as Dr. David Jacobs has documented. We have that. We have a verdant hood. We got a lot of plants and animals, a lot of parks in our hood. We are a human gang, and Earth is our hood. We fight amongst ourselves. We litter. We don't respect the hood like we should. We have a lot of things wrong with us. We act spiritual sometimes when we go to church, but we are violent. We do our own thing, but we do follow our leaders and ministers, and we are diverse. It's a lot of varied topics there. Just trying to paint a picture of who we are, because we are the exact opposite of these EBs. The EBs are non-violent for the most part. They use mental tricks and technology. They are not spiritual in the way we think of spirituality. They do not have individuality. They do not have free will for the most part. And they have no diversity. And I've gone through this. You can look at my alien demographics video, and I go through all of this. This is pretty well documented in a lot of varied research. Again, you can read it as science fiction or believe it, whatever. It's great science fiction. Now, getting back to our comparison here. The malevolent EBE is another gang coming for our territory. So that's who our visitors are. They're a bunch of Tony Soprano, a bunch of gangbangers coming to take over our hood. They want to take over our hood. They are sneaky. They're space players. They're space shot callers. These are not good guys. They ain't the good guys, because the good guys ain't interested in our hood. They want to stay to themselves. They want to stay in their own hood. These space gangsters are smaller in number than us. Okay? They're weaker than us. You know, they don't have the spirituality we do. They have a lot of weakness they have. So they work in sneaky ways. Okay? Space player mind games are a major tool. They do a lot of mental manipulation through telepathy and so forth, and also through technology. They are conning humans to get them to work for them. Okay? This is the whole idea. It's mental jujitsu. They are going to con us into doing all their work for them and to take over the planet for them. This is what these readings say. They don't use overt violence. They're too smooth for that. For example, they like middle-of-the-night home invasions. Okay? Think of abductions. What could be sneakier than that? And more criminal than that, really. And hidden manipulations. Again, I go through this in the presentation. You can hear about that later. Space gangsters are conning us out of our hood. They want to con us out of our hood. They plan to take over our territory. I have that misspelled there. That should say they. The briefings are telling us, there we go. There, that's better. The briefings are about telling us it is about to get real. So this is imminent according to these briefings. And we are marks for these space gangsters, okay? These space Tony Sopranos or these space Bloods and Crips or whatever, you know, they have done this before. They have taken over many hoods before. They know exactly what they're doing, to the point where they're actually a little bored with doing it. They think we're all stupid. They think that this will be a pushover, again, because they've done it many times throughout the universe. And they are confident because up to now we have offered no opposition. No opposition. So these writings are about the humans wising up, and these are cliff notes on this subject. I don't know if that was explanatory. I've tried to bring it because it is a mind-bending concept. Tried to give it some grounding there. I hope you like the video. It follows here. I think it's a very interesting topic. And again, great science fiction if you don't happen to believe in it. And just a great read overall. I have the URL at the end of the video. Hope you enjoy it. This is Allies of Humanity, Book 1, 4th briefing. Or it's up to the end of the 4th briefing. These are my cliff notes. Let's just start to give you an idea of what these books have to say. And these are the authors speaking. We should begin by saying the activities the visitors are conducting in the world at this time have been carried out many times before, in many different places, with many different cultures, in the greater community being the galaxy. Your visitors, Earth's visitors, are not the originators of these activities, but merely use them at their own discretion and have used them many times before. So the galaxy is full of planets that have been acquired by the malevolent EBs. Interesting. It is important for you to understand that skills in influence and manipulation have been developed to a very high degree of functionality in the greater community, the universe. As racers become more adept and more capable technologically, they exert more subtle and more pervasive kinds of influence upon one another. So technology is really easy to acquire, advanced technology, and so they move to the next level, which is manipulation. Continuing. The visitors are fundamentally practical in their approach. This is both a strength and a weakness, as we have observed them both here and elsewhere. So they've done this many times, many places. It is difficult for them to deviate from their plans. They are not well adapted to change. As I said previously, they have a fascist command economy. They don't have a lot of individuality or individual thought. They can't deal with complexity very effectively. They carry out their plan in an almost careless manner. And I think you can see some of the abduction stories about Greys, dressing people in the wrong clothes when they return, leaving them in the wrong positions and so forth, attests to this. Now, this is important for the EBs, for they feel that they are in the right. Okay? They don't feel they're doing anything wrong by taking over this planet from us hairy apes. They believe they're in the right and that they have the advantage. They do not believe that humanity will mount resistance against them. They feel their secrets and their agenda are well preserved and well beyond human comprehension. And I don't think there's a lot of thought looking at the whole UAP issue, at least in the public sphere, taking this point of view. Now, this next passage here concerns religion. They talk about Jesus Christ here, and they talk about the unseen ones, which is kind of conceptually the heavenly realm, or the good aliens, the spiritual aliens that keep to themselves and so forth. So, but they talk about a second coming. Let me read this and comment on it. It's our understanding that the true Jesus will not return to the world. I don't know if I agree with that. I think I am confessional, a Catholic, so I have my own belief structure. But this is what they say: Jesus will not return to the world, for he is working in concert with the unseen ones, again, this heavenly spiritual realm, and serves humanity, okay, and other races as well, through subtle influencing and so forth. So this whole realm of angels and again, one day I will do a video on my model of all this, and it does include a spiritual component. I think absolutely everybody that's Jack Valet is a perfect example. I mean, everybody that has done any amount of research feels this is true. Now, they're talking about a second coming. The one who will come claiming his name, Jesus' name, will come from the greater community, alien community. He will be one who is born and bred for this purpose by the collective. This is the EBs that are in the world today. So that's the malevolent EBs. And this goes back to Dr. Jacobs' hybrids and the training of these hybrid human beings to act more human. They look human and they're learning human behaviors. He will appear human and will have significant abilities compared to what you can accomplish at this moment. He will seem completely altruistic. They're talking about this hybrid Christ model, he will be able to perform acts that will engender either fear or great reverence. Okay. So any unknown technology is magical to people that don't know it. What's his name said that? Clark said that, I believe. Indistinguishable from magic technology, as if we don't know it. He will be able to project images of angels, demons, or whatever his superiors wish to expose to you. This involves, the U.S. military has also worked on this type of thing, and they were going to put a holographic projection of Christ during an attempted coup in Cuba to feign a second coming similar to this. But in any case, they claim the EVs also have this capability, which I'm sure they do. He will seem to have spiritual powers, yet will come from the greater community, that's the malevolent EB community, and he will be part of the collective, that is the collective of these malevolent races that have gotten together to do the planetary acquisition of Earth, and he will engender allegiance to follow him. So, using the religious model, he's going to ask, for followers and claim to be, this is a antichrist or a false Christ scenario. Eventually, for those who cannot follow him, he will encourage their alienation or their destruction. So that's how you're going to be able to tell who this is. And it might be a little late by then. But very interesting concept here. And again, the time frame of 2025 comes into the back of my mind. But you can pause this and read this on your own. Very interesting concept. Now, this is kind of a wrap-up on this plan, and I think it's important to note that this has been used again and again, I'm sure with various religious beliefs or spirituality levels in many other planets that have been acquired by this collective of malevolent EVs or other collectives of malevolent EVs. I just want to say, the reason that they do this planetary acquisition is for resources. Because, again, most of the planets they live on are arid. They have to trade for everything they need to survive. They colonize a lot of these planets, so they go there, they live underground, and, again, everything they need they have to bring from somewhere else. And among other things, Earth is a great storehouse of resources. This is one of the reasons they want to acquire it. Some people think it's one of a few planets that are so verdant. Other people think that it is the only planet of this type that is this verdant in the universe, which ties in with the creation story, the religious creation story that a lot of religions follow here on Earth, which, could be the case. I think there is a good argument for that. But let's talk about this second coming. Okay, so a second coming, this is what the authors say, and again, they say we are like angels. They don't say they're angels. We don't know who they are. They're the spiritually advanced EB race that is watching from close by, they say, and reporting through this writer what they're seeing. A second coming, then, is being prepared by your visitors. There's evidence that of this, we understand, is already in the world. People do not realize the presence of the visitors or the nature of reality in the greater community, so they will naturally accept their prior beliefs without question. So, feeling the time has come for a great return of their savior and teacher. So, in other words, since they're so unaware of this alien presence, it's a perfect opportunity for these malevolent EVs to step into this role using holographic projection and whatever imagery, mental imagery, and so forth for this false second coming of the Christ figure. Now let's just read this. But he who will come will not come from the heavenly host. He will not represent knowledge or the unseen ones, and he will not represent the Creator or Creator's will. So, this is a hybrid. He is a false prophet, antichrist, whatever you want to call him. We have seen this plan in formulation in the world, on Earth. We have also seen similar plans carried out in other worlds. So this is nothing new. They use religion as a lever. They personally, these malevolent EBs, in any case, do not have a strong spirituality or a spiritual belief. That is not something they have. Some people say they worship technology and other things, but spirituality is not part of these malevolent races in any event. And as they say in this book, though the EB races that do have an advanced spirituality don't want to do planetary acquisition. They do not, nor do they want to associate with all these other races that may or may not be malevolent. They're very picky about who they associate with and so on and so forth. Anyway, let's move on here. Now, this next passage talks about what's going to happen after this false second coming. Those who can be convinced will be valued as useful by the EBs. Those that cannot be convinced will be discarded or alienated. Should visitors become strong enough to gain complete control of the world, those who cannot conform will simply be eliminated. Yet the visitors will not do the destruction. It will be wrought through the very individuals in the world who have fallen completely under their persuasion. So, in other words, this is, again, mental techniques, con games, mental control. This sounds very reminiscent of the Holocaust and World War II, the German Reich, and so forth. You will see in the future a ferocity of religious belief expressed in violent ways, carried out against people who will disagree, against nations of less strength, and it will be used as a weapon of attack and destruction. So in other words, they're going to weaponize, these EBs are going to weaponize religion, okay? And again, this is something they've done on many different planets, according to these writings, with many different belief systems. So this is a common lever they use for planetary acquisition, according to these writings. The visitors would like nothing better than for your religious institutions to govern the nations. Okay, and you can look at, all right, Iran. This you must resist. The visitors would like nothing better than to have religious values shared by everyone. For this adds to their labor force and makes their task easier. In all of this, manifestations, such influence fundamentally reduces down to the acquiescence and submission. Submission of will, submission of purpose, submission of one's life abilities. So that's what they're talking about, submitting to religious leadership, so forth. Yet this will be heralded as a great achievement for humanity, a great advancement in society, a new unification of the human race, a new hope for peace and equality, a triumph of open spirits over the human instinct. So, excuse me, the aliens are going to be gaslighting with this false second coming and getting everybody in line behind this religious leadership, and they're actually going to use it as mental jujitsu against the human race according to these writings. And I think, again, the gaslighting, it's going to be proclaimed as a great unity of the people and so forth, when really, according to these writings, it's going to be a manipulation technique, which has been used again with various belief systems throughout the galaxy, on different planets, again for planetary acquisition. Now, this is kind of a dire warning, but I think it gets right to the point, the crux of all of this. Let me just read this to you. Do not welcome communications with those intervening in your world until you have the strength. Do not open your minds and hearts to visitors from beyond the world, for they come here for their own purpose. Do not think that they will fulfill your religious prophecies or greatest ideals. For this is a delusion. Okay? So, in other words, eternal skepticism, demand verification, be suspicious of everyone. I mean, this is a dire warning. Do not even communicate. So, they say stay clear. And they say later in these writings, I don't know if I'm going to mention or not, especially do not become dependent on extraterrestrial technology. This is nothing but a control device. Have your own technology. Okay, I guess you can reverse engineer it, but have it available on Earth. Don't require trade with other races to have your existence. Your spirituality must be sound. It must be based upon real experience for values and beliefs. Okay, so they're saying, an internal spirituality, which is something that these EBs evidently do not have. They say that rituals and traditions can be used and are being used by their visitors for their own purpose. And again, so the outward trappings of religion are or could be manipulated, whereas the internal belief system cannot. But do not welcome communications with those intervening in your world until you have the strength. Okay, so you have to be able to discern their motives and understand if they're manipulating you. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't be in contact with them. This goes to Stephen Greer's CES5 contacts and so forth. I think speaks to something like that. Maybe again, I'm not damning Stephen Greer. I think he's a great researcher, but just a contrary point of view. Now, this passage here is talking about the weaknesses that are presented by the EB culture and so forth. Your visitors are very vulnerable in certain areas. These are the EBs, malevolent EBs. Individuality, they have very little will. Individually, they have very little will and have difficulty dealing with complexities. They do not understand your spiritual nature. Of course, they do not share our spirituality at all, as you can see by the fake second coming that they're planning. They do not understand true spirituality. Rituals and so forth they do, but the true spiritual nature they do not. The stronger you are with knowledge, the more inexplicable you become. The harder you are to control, and the less useful you become to them and to their program integration. So, again, not being conned by them, not thinking they're saviors or that their technology is going to save you, questioning everything. And in other portions of this book, they want humans to understand and recognize who is being manipulated by these EBs, because they are manipulating, according to these writings, our leaders and local leaders and so forth. And part of this knowledge is to be able to discern who is under their influence and who is not. And I don't know exactly how to do that, but they do mention that. Individually, the stronger you are with knowledge, the greater challenge you become to them. The more individuals that become strong with knowledge, the more difficult it is for visitors to isolate them. So I think opening up your mind to this whole concept of planetary acquisition and the potentiality of a negative collective of EBs who have been involved in planetary acquisition for resource allocation, for resources throughout the galaxies, who feel they're doing the right thing and totally disregard you and your will and your planet. We'll get on to what things will be left as if this follows through. Let's just move on here to their weaknesses. The visitors do not have physical strength. They do not. You can see by their physicality. Their power is in the mental environment and in the use of their technologies. Their numbers are small compared to yours. I have mentioned that, the planetary populations, other researchers in the past have said planets of the mass of 100,000 people, 100,000 beings. So if they are colonizing a planet like Mars, and they may have already done it, but let's say they're going to move in underground, they live underground, they're colonizing there, they have to bring in everything they need to survive, and they have longer lifespans, so their numbers are limited. They're wholly reliant upon your acquiescence. Okay? So, their mental, in other words, they're physically weak, they're small in number, but they have technology that can fake the second coming, for example, and they have this ability, and you can see Dr. David Jacobs' really startling video interviews on this about how humans are being mind controlled to train these hybrids in, how to go to Walmart and so forth. And it's, according to David Jacobs, real. So, anyway, they're physically weak, they're smaller in number, but, anyway, the point they're making here is if we don't fall under their spell, or if we question them, there isn't much they can do. But they are overly confident they can succeed. Based upon their experience so far, humanity has not offered significant resistance. Okay? So, there you go. Now, I think this is a very critical section here. Let me just read this. And carrying on from the previous section, yet the stronger you are with knowledge, the more you become a force that opposes intervention and manipulation, and the more you become a force for freedom and integrity for your race. Okay? So we have to get hip to all this stuff. We have to, according to this writing, understand conceptually what's going on here and get our best minds to work on this. The military may be already doing this, or shockingly, who knows, maybe key figures in the military or the cabal or MJ-12, as I don't like to say anymore, perhaps they are being mentally manipulated by these malevolent EVs. I mean, that's also a potentiality. Anyway, the stronger you are in knowledge, the more you become a force that opposes intervention and manipulation, and the more you become a force for freedom and integrity for your race. Now listen to this next section. If humanity were more vigilant and understood the realities of life in the greater community, the dog-eat-dog intergalactic survival competitiveness and competitiveness for resources, biological and raw resources. If humanity were more vigilant and understood the realities of life in the greater community and the meaning of premature visitation, as I said in one of my last videos, and also according to Tom Armstrong's book, according to the Galactic Federation, and there are other terms for it and other various, they're not, it's planetary sovereignty, free will. There's not supposed to be any contact till the planet has interstellar travel, and that's when they're going to be on an equal footing technologically, and that's when there's supposed to be contact by outside races. So these guys that are doing it now are coming in, they're, galactic gangbangers, and they're coming in to con everybody. They're like the EB Tony Soprano. They're coming in, they're going to take over the earth and bust it out. That's what their plan is. The meaning of premature visitation, your risk would not be so great as they are today. So again, this this whole idea of this bigger idea of planetary acquisition is something that not a lot of people are deep thinkers on. There is hope and expectation that such visitation will bring great rewards and a great fulfillment for you. So, in other words, I hate to mention Stephen Greer again, but he talks about an alien power source, other channelers and so forth. They speak about a higher knowledge and so on and so forth of the EBs, and more spirituality, and the good feelings and good vibes of save the earth and stop the atomic bombs and all that business. So that's our expectation. But yet you have not been able to learn of the reality of the greater community or of the powerful forces that are interacting with your world. Your lack of understanding and premature trust in the visitors will not serve you, does not serve you. So, again, this idea of, what did Reagan say? Trust but verify. How are we going to verify an off-world society when we can't travel there? So, premature acceptance, yeah. I think premature visitation, yeah, it does make sense. Now, this talks about more advanced EBs and EBs that actually possess an internal spirituality, like we were speaking of early, and they're considered the positive EBs. The positive, they do not seek to be part of guilds or trading cooperatives, and again, these gangster EBs, they're all about trade and getting their resources and trading resources and commerce and so forth. The highly advanced EBs are not interested in this. They do not seek this diplomacy with many worlds. They limit their contact. Okay? Their network of allegiances is more mysterious, more spiritual in nature. Okay, so they don't say what's going on. They keep to themselves. They understand the risks and difficulties of exposure to the realities of life in the physical universe. So again, this dog-eat-dog intergalactic capitalism, slave trade, resource mongering, planetary acquisition, okay? They maintain their insulation and remain vigilant at their borders, which I think is sound advice. They only seek to extend their wisdom through means that are less physical in nature, and, this telepathic inspirations and so forth. But this is diametrically opposed. The spiritual positive EBs are diametrically opposed in every way to these EBs supposedly we are in contact with now that are planning this planetary acquisition. So their advice to us: maintain your insulation and remain vigilant at your borders. Pretty shocking stuff. Okay, this next section gives a view into the future of what's going to happen should these guys, these gangster EBs, take over. I'll just read this. If humanity should fail in opposing the intervention we can paint a picture of what this would mean. We have seen it elsewhere. Again, this has happened many times. It says for each of us, it came very close in our own worlds. So this might be a challenge that everybody faces out there. Being part of a collective, that means, again, we've got a group of smaller malevolent EBs, 3 or 4 groups that got together, formed a collective, and took over Earth. And Earth then becomes part of their collective. The planet Earth will be mined for its resources. Its people will be corralled to work, and its rebels and heretics will either be alienated or destroyed. So, domination, again, it sounds a lot like the Third Reich. The world will be preserved for its agriculture and mining interests. Human societies will exist, but only in subordination to powers from beyond your world. And should the world exhaust its usefulness, should its resources be completely taken, for example, the water, then you'll be left bereft. The support of life upon your world will have been taken from you. The very means of survival will have been stolen. I think this implies water. This has happened before in many other places. So, I have learned in other research that the universe is full of burned out husks of planets, either from environmental catastrophes or from these takeover events. Now I come to realize this is probably another factor that comes into play. In the case of this world, the collectives may choose to preserve the world for ongoing use as a strategic post and as a biological storehouse. Yet the human population would suffer terribly under such oppressive rule. The population of humanity would be reduced. The management of humanity would be given to those who are bred to lead the human race within a new order. That's hybrids, or hybrids, as Dr. Jacobs says. They would take over the leadership. Human freedom, as you know it, would no longer exist, and you would suffer under the weight of foreign rule, a rule that would be harsh and exacting. So, again, reminiscent of the Third Reich, I keep coming to mind on that. You know, they say that there was a reptoid or reptilian race and an evil Nordic race influencing the Third Reich. But I would add to this that a lot of people that are having repressed memories come back of the 20 and back space soldiers and so forth. They mention a lot of this loss of freedom, slavery, common, evidently, in the greater community, as they say here. It's a common thing. I mean, if you get snatched from your home or whatever, and you're taking it, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to do whatever happens to you. But anyway, this is a bleak outlook for the aftermath of planetary acquisition. So definitely not a positive, not an outcome we want. So vigilance and protecting our planetary borders, I think, is key here, according to these writings. Again, I'm not going to say whether I believe this or not. I'm going to say this is great science fiction. I think this channel is devoted to presenting this material and letting you make up your own mind. Now, this section here talks about, you know, seeing through the eyes of these galactic gangsters, these galactic gangbangers, and trying to see things as they see them. Okay, as they, let's say, as they would see Earth, looking through the eyes of a malevolent Eevee. Therefore, understand, from your visitor's perspective, you are all tribes that need to be managed and controlled in order to serve the visitor's interests. Remember, the visitors think they're doing the right thing. They're doing us a favor. For this, your religions and a certain degree of your social reality will be preserved. Okay? But that's only to control us. but you will lose a great deal, and much will be lost before you realize what has been taken from you. So again, this dependence on technology from outside races, these hybrids that are undetectable, basically, running things in key positions, take place before you realize what has been taken from you. Therefore, we can only advocate a vigilance, a responsibility, and a commitment to learn about what's going on, learn about life in the greater community, and learn how to preserve your own culture and own reality within a greater environment, okay? So, this planetary isolation. Learn how to see who is here to serve you and distinguish them from those who are not. Again, these hybrids and people that are under the control, mental control of these EBs, which they do exert. Again, you can see Dr. Jacobs is, I don't know how many abductees he has interviewed, and if they can get within, they can influence you telepathically from a distance. They can basically take control of you, according to the research I've done. If they can get within 30 or 40 feet of you, they can take control of you. This greater discernment is so needed in the world, even for the resolution of your own problems. But regarding your survival and well-being in the greater community is absolutely fundamental. So, this is the key. Learn how to see who is here to serve you and distinguish them from those who are not. So, who are the hybrids, right? Who are the humans that are under the control of these malevolent EVs? This is what they're saying here. Now, I just want to close this out. And this is some fascinating reading. Again, just on a pure science fiction level, it's fascinating, but it's really mind-expanding to consider these conceptual ideas, and this idea that this has happened many times on many planets throughout the universe. It's exciting in a way. These are the three things I took from this material. First of all, I think it's great. I think it's a great read. And you have to make up your own mind, certainly, what it means to you. But I do think 2025 might be an important date. Again, there's a sense of urgency in this material. It's about 5 years old. We're coming up on 2025. They're saying we don't have much time in this material. Whether you believe that or not, I don't know if it's true. But as I said, 2025 is mentioned repeatedly in some abduction scenarios, some hypnotic regressions, all kinds of things. This date, 2025, could be wrong on that, but I can tell you that it seems to be important, or at least has stuck in my mind throughout many hours of research, that this does come up. So, am I saying the world is going to end on 2040? I don't think so. Could it be disclosure? I don't know. We don't know. And certainly we're not saying that everything that's mentioned here is going to come true, but this is a cautionary tale, okay, for the human race, okay? Now that's number one, 2025. Number two, I think JFK, when you read through this material more completely, you can see that JFK, he demanded all the UFO information. He wanted to unify the Russian and the U.S. response to UAPs. He wanted a joint U.S. So he was moving towards a planetary organization that would confront this issue head on, and I think that's exactly what this material is saying. And you can see my other videos on this. There is pretty clear evidence to me that the cabal, meaning MJ-12, was behind the JFK and RFK assassination and other things as well. the question that comes to my mind is, were those leaders who set that up, were they influenced, as they say these EBs can influence leaders? Is that the result? That certainly would be an EB response. They say those that don't come in line are going to be destroyed or whatever. Anyway, it does appear as though JFK was either understood this ahead of everyone else, or had some type of inkling, because it was a sudden, road to Damascus thing where he decided to suddenly do all this stuff. And I do believe it followed his visit to Area 51, which I believe he took place. You can see my video on that. There's a lot of information there. I do believe after JFK visited Holloman Air Force Base, and I believe Area 51, and perhaps even the Roswell crash site, I think this is what caused him to change his mind. And who knows, what he met, or what went on there. You got to see my video on that. It's very interesting. I don't think anyone else has come to that conclusion but me. And the third thing is, Stephen Greer looks bad in this light. And as do some other sources that see harmless EBs. Dolores Cannon is one that comes to mind. They're both very good researchers, but, I'm not judging here, and both of these are excellent researchers, but they just do look bad. Others do as well. The material here implies EBs can influence humans to get them to their point of view and to get them to espouse their ideas. So, I'll just give you an example of this. I was watching something the other day. It was about an arc, a UFO arc. I think it was Michael Sala had it on, and he was talking about Marine. They had Aztecs with them there, and the Aztecs were brought with them, and they went to this UFO arc, which evidently these arcs, according to these programs, I don't know if this is true, come down and they rescue everyone from disasters and take them off Earth, like the Noah's Ark and so forth. But the point is, they brought, according to Michael Sala's source here, Aztec, Mayans that could read the Mayan language to decode these hieroglyphs on the wall and of this ark, and they went down there, and they had the ability to decode these hieroglyphs, and they were reading them, and they were rejoicing because they were celebrating the coming back of one of their gods and so forth. Now, the Aztec Empire, not to cast aspersions here, massively big into human sacrifice, okay? Massive. And it didn't stop for a long time. It came right up to almost to the modern world. And so when this ark has this Aztec writing in it, and with that historical background, I think we can all agree that human sacrifice is not a good idea. They would have Aztec festivals, and they would sacrifice, like 20,000 people, 50. It's crazy. Anyway, the point is, I think some people, again, I think everyone, trust but verify, or if you can't verify, don't trust, or whatever. But I think if you look a little deeper into some of this, according to Tom Armstrong, and according to this source now, a couple other sources, the good EBs don't really want to come here. It's really not good ones. But anyway, I think this is a very interesting read. There is the URL, alliesofhumanity.org. You can read all of these books online. I hope you enjoyed the video. Just want to close with this quote here from David Jacob. This is from his website, and You know, David Jacobs is the last abduction researcher, and he is retired. And this is a mild quote from his website. You can see the davidmichaeljacobs.com. I think the problem of the 21st century will be the problem of the alien presence. This, above all, will define and drive human society and activity. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video.